I turned down a promotion because I finally learned to value my time. Let me start with this. 3 years ago, I would have killed for that promotion. Seriously? I was the guy who stayed late, replied to emails at 11 p.m., and said yes before I even knew what the request was. I thought I was grinding my way towards something: respect, security, freedom. I didn't even know. Just that moving up felt like the only direction worth going. So when my boss called me into her office and said, "We're thinking about moving you up to senior manager," I should have felt that dopamine surge. I should have walked out with a smirk, texting my girlfriend, "We made it." Instead, my first thought was, God, I'm already so damn tired. Let me back up. I'm 30, been with my girlfriend for almost 4 years now. She's brilliant, hilarious, and somehow still loves me even after seeing what I look like on 2 hours of sleep and 3 Red Bulls. We live in a modest apartment just outside the city. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. It feels like home. She's always been supportive of my job, too supportive maybe. Like, she's the type who leaves post-it notes on my laptop saying, "Crush it today," or packs me lunches with dumb little CEO of lunch labels. You'd think that would make me feel invincible, right? But it just started making me feel guilty. Because for the past year, I've been clocking 60, 70-hour weeks, always just one more project. Always this quarter, been crazy. I'd come home after she was asleep. I'd leave before she woke up. Half our conversations were me apologizing for missing dinner. She never complained, not once, and somehow that made it worse. One Sunday morning a few months ago, she was sitting on the couch with her legs tucked up, coffee in hand, hair still a mess from sleep. I was getting ready to log in. "Just real quick, babe, I just need to check something." She looked up and said, kind of offhand, "I miss you." It hit like a truck. Not in a dramatic, fight-starting way. It was just honest, simple, no edge to it. And that's what messed me up, because she wasn't being clingy. She was just telling the truth. I sat down next to her and didn't log in that day. First time in months. We didn't even do anything special, just made breakfast, went for a walk, talked about nothing. But it felt like coming up for air. That day made me start tracking things. How many hours I was really working. How often we had a meal together. How many weekends I lost just catching up. The numbers were gross. I realized I was living like a 50-year-old exec with something to prove, and the worst part, nobody asked me to. Then came the promotion talk. It wasn't just a raise, it was a leap. More money, bigger title, corner office, well, sort of a nicer cubicle at least. But with it came more clients, more pressure, more weekends, more everything. And here's the part that I don't think my boss expected. I didn't even hesitate. I just said, "I really appreciate it, but I'm gonna have to pass." She blinked. "Wait, what?" I explained as best I could without sounding like I'd joined a commune. I told her I was burning out, that I loved the team but needed to recalibrate, that I wasn't ready to trade my time for a title. She was surprisingly cool about it, said she respected it, that she didn't hear no to promotions often, and definitely not for that reason. The weirdest part, I thought I'd feel like I was throwing away an opportunity, but I walked out of that office and felt 10 pounds lighter. No panic, no regret, just a deep, quiet calm. I thought saying no would be the hard part. Turns out, that was the easy bit. What nobody tells you is that when you turn down a promotion, especially in a company where upward mobility is practically religion, it's like stepping off a moving train. The ride doesn't stop for you. It just keeps going, and suddenly, you're the guy standing on the platform, waving as everyone else zooms ahead. At first, I felt proud of myself. Light. Grounded. My girlfriend and I started having breakfast together again, actual breakfast with eggs and jokes and music, not just me chugging coffee while half-dressed and cursing traffic. I thought people at work would get it, respect it even. Some did. My closest teammate, Mark, pulled me aside and said, "Dude, I'm honestly jealous, took guts." But others. Let's just say the vibe shifted. People started calling me retired like a joke. One guy from sales asked if I was taking a mental health year. A few folks who used to copy me in on everything suddenly didn't. I'd walk into a meeting and feel like I'd missed the real conversation, the one that happened before the room filled up. I wasn't excluded exactly, just downgraded. It's like once you opt out of the climb, people stop seeing you as serious. One lunch break, I overheard someone say, "He peaked early," and they weren't even whispering. I pretended not to hear, but it stuck with me the whole day. I started questioning myself. Did I make the right call? Was I wasting potential? Was I becoming that guy, the one who settles? There was this one Friday where we wrapped a big project early, and everyone was buzzing. Our team had crushed it, and the VP dropped by to say thanks. As he left, he clapped our junior guy on the shoulder and said, "You're next up, keep it up." I swear to God, he looked right past me. I smiled, nodded, tried not to care, but inside a part of me itched, like my ego had just been gently, surgically deflated. That night, I told my girlfriend about it while we made pasta. She was chopping garlic, and I was sipping wine, trying not to sound like I needed validation. She listened, like really listened. Then she said, "You're measuring the wrong things." "What do you mean?" I asked. "You used to come home exhausted and anxious. Now you come home and cook with me. That's progress." It hit me like another truck. Because yeah, I wasn't being invited to leadership breakfasts, but I wasn't eating sad desk salads at 8 p.m. anymore either. I was present, and being present isn't nothing, it's everything. Still, the mental tug-of-war didn't stop overnight. I'd have good days, ones where I crushed my 9 to 5, closed the laptop, and went for a walk in the sunset like some Hallmark character. And I'd have days where I watched others zoom ahead and wondered if I was slowly fatting out of relevance. But here's the thing I started to realize. There's power in choosing enough. Not in laziness, not in slacking, but in enough. Enough to do your job well, without letting it eat your soul. Enough to enjoy a quiet night, instead of chasing that next shiny rung on the ladder. Enough to show up for the people who actually make your life feel full. I'm still learning that, still fumbling through it, still figuring out how to stay true to what matters while surrounded by a culture that treats burnout like a badge of honor. But every time I walk out of work while the sun's still up, I smile a little, not because I've got it all figured out, but because I'm not racing anymore. A few weeks after the whole promotion pass drama started to cool off, I noticed something different about Chris. Chris was the one who ended up taking the promotion I turned down. He was sharp, ambitious, a couple of years younger than me, and always had that I'm ready for the big leagues energy. When I declined the offer, he stepped in without missing a beat. Everyone congratulated him. He posted one of those humble brag LinkedIn updates, honored to take on this new role, ready to. The reactions poured in. I was genuinely happy for him. No sarcasm. The guy worked hard and he'd been gunning for that step up. I figured he'd crush it. But then, I started noticing little things. He stopped coming to lunch, started staying late, later than I used to. I'd see him packing in the hallway with his AirPods in, voice clipped, jaw tight. He had that same glassy-eyed stare I used to have when I'd been staring at spreadsheets too long and drinking reheated coffee at 7 p.m. One night I stayed a bit later than usual, tying up some loose ends, and saw his light still on. I peeked in. He was alone in the office, hunched over, eating vending machine chips for dinner. "Hey man," I said casually, "you good?" He jumped, then laughed. Yeah, just trying to finish this Q3 deck before tomorrow." "Didn't the deadline get moved to Monday?" He blinked. "Wait, really?" I nodded. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face. I didn't even check, I just assumed. We ended up chatting for a while, and somewhere in that conversation, his voice cracked, not literally, but something shifted. The polish slipped. "I thought this would feel better," he said. "Like I got what I wanted, so why do I feel like I'm drowning?" I didn't say, "I know." I just let the silence sit for a second. He kept going. "I barely see my girlfriend. I've canceled 3 plans with my friends. I dream about emails. And don't get me wrong, I want to do well. I'm just not sure this is worth it." And there it was. The thing I'd been trying to articulate for months, said out loud by the guy who took the path I walked away from. "You're not crazy," I said. "It's not just you, it's the game." He looked at me like I'd handed him a life jacket. We didn't solve anything that night, but I think that moment mattered, for both of us. A few days later, something even weirder happened. I got an email from a recruiter. Subject line, "Saw your work, wanna chat." I almost deleted it, figured it was spam or a copy-paste LinkedIn pitch, but something about it felt personal. Turned out, someone at a mid-sized tech company had heard about my decision. Apparently, they'd worked with our firm on a campaign a few years back, and my name came up in some internal convo. The recruiter said they admired the intentionality of turning down a promotion and were trying to build a more human-first culture. Would I be open to chatting? At first I thought, nah, I wasn't looking to leave. I had just started finding balance again. But curiosity got the better of me. We hopped on a Zoom call. The recruiter was sharp, laid back, clearly not trying to pressure me. She said they were restructuring their teams to avoid burnout, implementing 4-day weeks, flex hours, mandatory offline blocks during the day. "It's not perfect," she admitted, "but we're trying. And frankly, we need people who get it, who have lived the grind and decided it's not sustainable." The offer wasn't even on the table yet, but I could already feel the seed planting. Later that night, I told my girlfriend about it over a walk. She was quiet for a bit, then said, "I think it's cool they reached out, even if you don't go for it." "You think I should consider it?" I asked. "I think you should consider what you want your days to look like, not just your job title." Man, I really hit the jackpot with her. A week later, Chris asked me if I wanted to grab coffee. We'd never really hung out outside work before. Office chat? Sure, meetings, all the time, but coffee on a Saturday morning, that was new. We met at this little cafe with overpriced muffins and way too many dog owners. Chris showed up in a hoodie, eyes a little sunken, hair doing its own thing. "You look like you've been through it," I joked as we sat down. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I have, man, I really have. We talked, really talked. Not the surface level, buzzword-laced office talk, but the kind that happens when two people put their guard down. He told me he was exhausted, that he didn't know how to say no now that he'd said yes to the role, that every day felt like a tightrope walk between impressing the higher-ups and not completely falling apart. I keep telling myself it's temporary, he said, staring into his coffee, that it'll get better once I get the hang of it, but then I think, what if this is it? I nodded. That's the part no one warns you about. You think it's a phase, but for some people, the phase is the rest of their career. He was quiet for a while, then he looked at me and asked, how'd you know? What? That it wasn't worth it. I thought about that. I didn't know, not right away, I started noticing the gaps. Like how I was working so hard to build this future, I never had time to enjoy the present. My girlfriend and I would pass each other like ships. My weekends were recovery sessions, not living. I looked ahead and thought, if I keep this up, I'll have a corner office and no life. He sighed. I feel like I'm on that path now. You're still early. You can reroute. Chris laughed bitterly. Yeah, but it's not like I can just quit. Bills, expectations. I'm not telling you to quit, I said. I'm saying, maybe just ask yourself what you're really building, and if it actually leads somewhere you want to be. He stared at the table, tapping his fingers. Then he asked something I didn't expect. What does your day look like now? Like a regular Tuesday? And just like that, we pivoted, from existential crisis to the mundane, and honestly, it felt good. Regular Tuesday these days. It's not glamorous, there's no keynote speeches or client golf outings, but it's mine. I wake up around 7, not because I have to, because I can. My girlfriend's usually up a bit earlier, and sometimes she sneaks back into the room with coffee just to wake me up gently. She says I look peaceful in the morning. I pretend to believe her. We sit on the couch for a bit, sipping coffee, watching the light shift in the room. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't. It's not awkward. It's just comfortable. I start work around 9. From home most days. I check in with the team, knock out my tasks. No crazy fire drills, no meetings stacked like Tetris. I've learned to block my calendar for deep work. No one questions it anymore. At lunch, I actually leave the house, walk to a sandwich spot a few blocks away, chat with the barista, say hi to the same old guy who feeds pigeons by the fountain. Afternoons are slower, more thoughtful. I review things properly instead of rushing. I wrap up by 5, close the laptop, walk away. No checking emails just in case. Sometimes I cook dinner. Sometimes she does. We eat together, not in front of a screen. Evenings vary. Maybe we go for a walk, watch something dumb on Netflix, read side by side. Occasionally, we invite friends over for tacos and cards. It's not exciting, but it's enough. It's full in ways my old life was. I told all this to Chris, and he listened like I was describing Narnia. I didn't know life could be like that, he said quietly. It can, I said. It just costs you something different. That conversation stuck with both of us. He didn't quit, not yet, but I could tell he started shifting, delegating more, pushing back gently, saying no to meetings that didn't matter, protecting little pockets of time like they were sacred. We still catch up sometimes, compare notes, not as mentor and mentee, but as two people trying to unlearn the same toxic rhythm. It's weird. For the first time in years, I'm not rushing towards something. I'm just in it, fully, and the world hasn't ended. My value hasn't disappeared. My ambition didn't vanish. It just changed shape. It happened on a Thursday. A kind of Thursday that felt like it couldn't possibly hold any surprises. I had just wrapped up a call and was heating up some leftovers when my phone rang. It was my girlfriend's sister. Now she never calls, like ever. We're friendly, but we're send memes in the group chat friendly, not talk on the phone friendly. When I saw her name flash on the screen, something in me stilled. Hey, I said, trying to sound normal. Hey, she said quickly. Listen, don't freak out, but she's at the urgent care. She fainted at work. They think it's probably dehydration or stress, but they're running tests. She asked me to call you. I was already grabbing my keys before she finished the sentence. The thing is, a year ago I wouldn't have been able to leave right away. Back then, I would have been locked in meetings, or halfway across the city, or stuck convincing myself I couldn't just drop everything. But now, I could, no questions asked, no guilt. I drove straight there. When I arrived, she was lying on one of those too bright, too cold urgent care beds, sipping water, looking pale but smiling. I'm fine, she said before I even sat down. I promise I just haven't been sleeping well, too many deadlines. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. Deadlines can wait, you can't. She teared up, just a little, enough. I'm so glad you came, she whispered. Always. And I meant it, every syllable. She was okay. The tests came back fine, just burnout, stress, not enough food or rest. All fixable, all reminders. That night, after we got home and she fell asleep early on the couch, wrapped in a blanket like a burrito, I sat beside her and thought, this is the moment I was saving my time for. Not just the cute dates or long walks, but this. Being there when it actually matters. When someone you love needs you, and you can just show up, fully, instantly, completely. You can't put that on a resume, but it's the kind of thing that makes you feel like a real human being. A few weeks later, she surprised me. I came home from a jog and found a note taped to the fridge. Pack a bag, something comfy. 3 days, no laptops. Below it was a tiny doodle of a tent and 2 mugs of coffee. She booked a little cabin in the woods. Nothing fancy, no Wi-Fi, no service, just birds, trees, a grill, and one of those sad little fireplaces that smells like summer camp. We spent the whole weekend doing basically nothing. We played cards, made pancakes with way too much syrup, watched clouds roll over the trees. She read a book. I sketched badly in a notebook I forgot I owned. And one night, by the fire pit, wrapped in a blanket together, she said, I know you gave up a lot. I just want you to know. I see it. And I'm really, really glad you chose this. I looked at her and smiled. Me too. And I meant it, not in a cliché movie script way. In the deep bone, no doubt, this is what life is kind of way. These days, people still ask if I regret turning down that promotion. I usually smile and say, nope. But the real answer is more than that. The real answer is, I finally stopped measuring my worth in hours billed, emails sent, or status updates. I started measuring it in moments. Like late night ramen with my girl after a long walk. Like being the person someone calls when things go sideways. Like the piece of a Tuesday afternoon that doesn't feel like a countdown to Friday. You can always make more money. You can never make more time. And for the first time in a long time, I'm spending mine exactly where I want to.